let's get back to work. I too. I'm looking at all these, also I'm seeing all these young faces out here. That makes me happy. Because that's where change is going to come from. Not old guys like me, but all the young people out there. This is a great honor for me to be esteemed minister with our guests from the African continent who work so tirelessly in their lives, 24 hours, 7 days of this job. Not easy, any of this. I think the common denominator here is we're all human beings, isn't it? Every one of us here. And I from my point of view, it seems like everyone is an immigrant or a refugee or a migrant, all moved into their lives moving. I'm looking at Tencho Piazza here, so a Tibetan friend from International Campaign from our Tibetan community. And I ask her all over the world from their beautiful homeland, they're experts in this. How do you move and be successful? It's talent. It's from a deep place, and not every culture is able to do that. We've all moved, whether it was our parents or grandparents, generations before. Anna, you didn't know this, but actually I'm told I had 4 or 5 people on the Mayflower, which was the boat that left England for North America. And then there was a young boy. It was the first Gere. It wasn't spelled the same. It was Gere. Was sent away. There was some kind of money issue with an evil uncle. Sent him on a boat to America. He ended up in what is now Connecticut. But that's my lineage. Mostly Anglo-Saxon, and I'm told a little German. Like 2% German. I'm not sure how I feel about that. 2% German. So we all left, and our parents left, our grandparents, to make a journey in search of safety, opportunity, dignity, simply to look for a better future. Human history is in many ways the history of migration. It's a story of people adapting, building, contributing, dreaming. And yet somehow in today's debates, we often speak about migrants, about refugees, as if they were different from us. I think the term that was actually given today, apparently the U.S. government is calling aliens. Aliens. That's the latest. It had been vermin, now it's aliens. I'm deeply ashamed of this, they belong to another category of human beings, as if their hopes, fears, and aspirations were somehow less legitimate than our own. The simple truth that we're all connected by movement, by our own humanity, by journeys that have come before us. When I heard about what was happening in the Mediterranean, the first time I went to Lampedusa, Sicily, which was the first place, of course, you got to go somehow. Usually the closest you got to Europe was Lampedusa, and I made a point of going to those camps and seeing for myself those people. All over Africa, it was astonishing how the voyage that they had taken was not from one country, it was from many countries, and then Syrians, Middle Easterns that were in that camp, happy to be alive, unhappy to be in the camp, still looking for home somewhere. So, a few years after that visit to Lampedusa, my wife and I were actually visiting friends in Italy, and a friend called us, said, "Did you know about this new law in Italy?" I said, "No." So, there's a new law that makes it illegal to save people say, I said, not that temperature. I made a few phone calls. And they said, what's true? A law that makes it illegal to help drowning people. As astonishing as that, from a Christian country, is this even imaginable? The image of that, the Christian image of Jesus saving people with water. It's now illegal to save drowning people. So I couldn't believe that. It was not possible, but it was, and it was surreal. And there was a group we had been working with, which was Open Arms, based in Barcelona. We had visited years before and were working with. It's a Spanish search and rescue operation organization. It was started by Oscar Camps. His story is incredible. If you've not heard of him, you need to look him up. I think it would inspire you. So I called them and they said, look, yes, this is true, and right now there's a crisis. There's a boat, an open arms boat, about 20 miles off the coast of Lampedusa. They won't let it come in. And I said, what can you do? I said, well, you can go there. Oscar's going there. You can meet him. So I immediately got into a car, met him in Rome. We flew to Lampedusa. And yes, in fact, there were 120 people there that had been rescued for a sinking. From a sinking boat, many had died in the process. The amount of suffering I wasn't aware of until I actually got on the boats. But we gathered, we spent a day getting food, water, medicine, and making arrangements for a boat. This is a very long story, but in the end, the boat that we had, the guy said he couldn't do it. The secret police, the Italian secret police came to him at midnight and said, if you do that, we'll shut you down. You will not have a boat, you will not have opportunities, you will not work again. So we had to find another boat. And actually, I don't think you know the story either, but actually we were looking for a boat. We had all this food, we had everything. And there was one tourist boat that was there in the harbor. And I went up to him and he said, oh my God, Richard. I said, yeah. He said, come here. And we went to the cockpit of the boat and he had, his cell phone was there. And there was an app on it. He had just been watching me give kind of a Buddhist lecture about responsibility and empathy. And he said, of course you can use my boat. So water and medicine and everything else out in the boat. And so we went out into the boat. It took us hours to get there, 25 miles out. We found the open arms boat, the ship was out there. And we came up to the boat. And there were 120, 130 men, women, children, just sitting there on the deck of the boat, and a tarp over them to keep them out of the sun. Mothers were holding babies, children just sitting there, young men were staring silently and with a darkness about them, just looking at the horizon. These faces were marked by exhaustion, fear, uncertainty, and yet somehow they're still carrying in some of them. You can see the past. The vestiges of the home is still there. Barely, the glimmer of it was still there. And the crew, extraordinary crew there, was doing everything possible to care for them, feeding them, comforting them, entertaining them the best they could. They had musical instruments and were passing it around just so everyone would be occupied with some sense of joy about them, trying to keep their spirits alive. I spent the full day there with them, talking with them, listening to them hear their stories. It was a young kid that spoke a lot of African languages that he was doing the translation for me. And actually, my son ended up on the boat the next day, who was 20 years old at that time. He actually just kept up with several of these kids. One was this young kid from Eritrea, who was in France now. They kept up the friendship. So each one of the stories that I heard there was extraordinary, as you can imagine. And many of them, especially hard to repeat. And I know some of them I haven't told anyone. I haven't told my wife. I haven't told anyone. They were kidnapped, abused, trafficked, passed from one militia and moved into another. There's no central government there. Actually, Nigeria is a different place. you should have to go through the same process. Each new militia, as you're trying to get to the ocean, to a boat, hopefully a boat, one that you won't die in, way to Lampedusa, somehow get to the rest of Europe. The men spoke of torture, forced labor, sold into slavery, many of them, extortions, families contacted and threatened for ransom money, unspeakable violence used as leverage, which I'm sure you know about. Get a cell phone to find a relative. They'll call up an ear talking to a relative in Europe and say, we're going to cut their nose off next if you don't send 500 euros. After surviving all that, they climbed into extremely overcrowded boats and set off into the sea. But what I think struck me the most, the suffering for sure, but this determination that there was a place for them somewhere. This drive for a safe place is an extraordinary human soul. I think it's a metaphoric one as well as a real one. A safe place. To that point of view, they look for that home inside themselves and then express that outwardly in the world. But we're all looking for home still. And that never stops, I don't think, that search. I remember talking to one kid, and I asked him, would you go back? If you can't get in to the properties, would you accept a boat taking you back? He said, absolutely not. I'd rather die. I'm not going back into hell. I'd rather die. And that was the response I said on that boat. I had the same feeling. What circumstances must exist in someone's life to go on a fragile boat into nowhere with only the vaguest expectation that you will survive, find that safe home? Migration is often discussed through stats, statistics, border policies, quotas, election campaigns from the bad guys especially, and naked racism, true manipulation. But before it's any of those things, it's a profoundly human story. These are about people. It's about us. It's about dignity, survival, hope. This is not ultimately a political issue. I don't see distinctions. We were talking about it before. I don't see any difference between spiritual, political, human, social. It's all the same. Essentially, coming from that acceptance of our core humanity, which binds us all together in this profound way. All the other stuff falls into place. It's all the same. I can have politics without heart. How's that possible? I can have politics. Come up with a social system that doesn't come from that empathic impulse to be good and to witness the good in others and connect with them. As the Dalai Lama says, you want to have a good life, be good to others. Be compassionate to others. And that compassion feeds the goodness of their own life. We all know that. What do we do when another person is suffering? Whether next door or thousands of miles away. All the great religions of humanity teach us the same lesson, using different words, but it's all the same. Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism. You help those who suffer. Help your neighbor. Love your neighbor. I don't know anyone who says that the neighbor's black or poor or gay or whatever they are. I don't remember that in any of this literature. Love your neighbor. Every one of them. Not just those who look like you, who speak your language, not those who only share your passport, but those who need help. And that is what humanity in our own hearts demands of us. And that truth is we have the resources. We got it all. We got the knowledge. We have the ability. We have the technology. We have food. We have water. We have it all. We have the capacity to do it because we're human. And we are innately empathic, and I do believe in that. That's the core of my optimism, is that we do feel, and we feel others' pain. You know, I was making a movie, developed a movie, made a movie about a homeless guy, and I spent hours on the street making this movie. And it was the most extraordinary experience, profound one in my own life. I was in character enough that no one was seeing Richard Gere, they just saw a homeless guy. Another case of someone looking for home. It was a homeless guy on the street. And once I kind of trusted that they were only seeing homeless guy, I was able to engage at a profound level what people were going through when they saw this homeless guy. The first thing was they could see my suffering as a homeless guy. And then all these other profound things were coming up. And I'm sure it made them feel embarrassed and guilty. Is that, why should I give them my money? Greed. Why should I care about it? Self-cherish. There's a myriad of those kind of selfish emotions coming out that kept them from the innate empathy, the first thing of, I get it. Man, you're on your ass right now. You are suffering. To me, that's the connection you're talking about before. If we all come from that place, don't then overlay the other things. I don't have money, why should I care? They're not really like me. My family is here. Here. Then the front door and the back door. My apartment or my house. The outside of that is sort of family, but that's not my family. No, the whole thing is my family. It's so easy to go there. It's hard to build these barriers. So we have this innate compassion, and we can develop that into vast compassion. We have the intelligence, we have the capability to choose and act on that compassion. The people here have chosen that. We're going to act on that. We're going to do it. That's the difference. A lot of people, well, I don't like to, but they do it. You do it. You just do it. It's easier to do it than not do it. Humanitarian assistance is necessary. Saving lives is necessary. Equally important are wisdom and insight. And if we want lasting solutions, we got to ask harder questions. We're going to always have to seek deeper understanding of what's going on. And that's an unending process. Always looking deeper, always looking for, can we do it better? Is there a root cause that we haven't seen that we can attack and transform in some way? Why are people leaving? Why do they go? Why do they move? Why do so many feel that they have no future where they were born? Why an entire generation is willing to risk everything? Perhaps even more importantly, what role have we played in creating the conditions that drive those decisions? Because today's migration didn't emerge in a vacuum, of course not. Many of the countries from which people migrate today have histories deeply entwined with those of Europe and the West of America. And obviously, the stories of what America has done. For centuries, colonial systems extracted resources, abused tribal cultures, shaped political structures, redrew borders, influenced patterns of economic development, whose consequences continue to be felt today. Acknowledging that history is not about assigning guilt to current generations, but it's about recognizing and understanding our responsibility and moving from there. We can't change history, but we can choose whether to ignore its consequences or help address them. So we can choose whether relationships between continents remain transactional and reactive or become genuine partners, building mutual respect, opportunity, and shared